Mr. Bob Rock. Rob Stone.
Oh, hey,
man.
I'm good, man.
Good.
You survived your Class 3 kill storm? Don't make the sound of that Class 3.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I woke up to maybe 6 to 8 inches on the ground, and I went and snow blowed it out. And then after I got done with the distal area, I came back and there was another inch or two where I just plowed. So yeah, it came down pretty good. It was nice. It's been kind of a mild winter, but we survived. Yeah, I went up snowboarding with my daughter to hopefully catch some nice powder, and we get up there and we're riding the lift up, and I hear people coming down like, oh, that sounds icy. That's not good. And so we start going down. Yeah, it's pretty icy where it's groomed, and then where it's not groomed, it's about 2 feet of slush. And it was not the powder I was hoping for, and I got stuck and had to turtle my way out for a good 45 minutes. Yeah, for an old guy, I worked up quite the sweat and did another run, and we said, okay, I think that'll do us for tonight. Let's get out of here. So yeah, good times though. Is it hitting you now, or are you guys getting snow?
We were supposed to get some snow and rain today. We've had it's been weird. It's only been snowing on Friday nights into Saturdays for the last month. So
yeah,
for whatever reason, but we've gotten. It doesn't seem like this one will be very much, but I don't know about you, but yeah, the last 3 Saturdays or three of 4 Saturdays or something like that, it's been probably about what you're describing or lower, between 3 to 6, 8 inches, something like that every Saturday. So
yeah, we've had a few good snowstorms, but it's rained a lot too. So I don't think there's much snow on the ground right now. I mean, they're on the driveways and roads. It's pretty clear, but yeah, there's still a little bit on the grass. My dog
came back from
freaking running
Florida
away from me, and I'm chasing him around trying to catch him, and he's a slippery little bugger. He's a little French bulldog, and man, he's just an escape artist. I can't catch the dang thing, and I'm just chasing around. Get back here, Homer! Come on, Homer! He is like a Homer Simpson. Yeah, good times.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Well, we are joined tonight by our good friend, Rob Christian. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Just hanging out in the room, and I'm really excited to be on. I do listen to every episode, so I'm excited to be on.
Right on. Yeah, we're glad to have you on. I messaged you a while back, but you don't do Messenger, so you never got my message saying, "Hey, man, come on the show." So,
yeah, I wanted to go on since you guys started. I just love listening to all the episodes, but I don't use Facebook Messenger. I don't even really use the Facebook app. I log on and do it through the web browser like an old person.
Right on. Yeah, it's probably smart, but yeah. So yeah, either way, glad to finally get you on. But just know you were in the list a long time ago. So yeah,
I'm honored.
Yeah. Now, when was that trip you did to Utah that we were on together?
Oh boy, that was 2021. Yeah, 2021. I think. Okay. Because that's the same year that I moved to North Carolina.
Yeah. That was cool. So that's the first time we met in person. But yeah.
Yes.
I'm still. You got my wife to handle a wild tarantula. That was a feat, man. That's the one thing she was just never comfortable with her big spiders. And then I look over and Rob's like helping her hold one. I'm like, what is going on here? Yeah. Pretty awesome. So that was cool.
Something about the way that I talk about animals gets to people like that. I can't tell you how many people who I've done programs for who are like, I've been afraid of snakes my whole life. And then, 30 minutes later, they're holding a corn snake or a ball python. They're like, I wasted my whole life. These things are awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. You have the touch, man, for sure. Just
something like that.
Make people feel comfortable. I mean, you're just a personable guy, they just trust you and know, hey, if Rob's doing this, it's good to go. So yeah,
maybe most of the time. I know that when we were out there in Utah, I saw one of the sun spiders, the camel spiders, and I was like, oh, Solfuge, I can pick that up. And I went right over to it, and the thing grabbed me real quick, and I was like,
really?
Can't do that.
I guess I'd forgot. I didn't know that. Was it up on that hillside?
Yeah. And I was a ways away from people because I was gonna like scoop it up and bring it over to you guys, but it was trucking, and
they're fast.
Made a mistake. I made a mistake.
Yeah. Bobby Pebbles has also hiked that hillside. That's where we found the speck, and we found a lyre snake on there last year when Rob and Eric and a bunch of guys came out. It was Dustin.
I'm very jealous.
Yeah. Did I forget somebody? Anyway.
Who did you say? You said Eric.
You, Dustin, Eric, Dustin. Nipper. Can't forget Nipper. Yep. So, yeah, good times. But yeah, that trip that you guys came out for, I've forgiven Chris with the Gila incident. You guys found 2 Gilas walking around. And I was driving down. We were about a half hour away, and I said, "Hey, where are you guys? I'll drive right to where you are and meet you." And I probably could have seen those Gilas, but Chris did not respond to my message, and I should have known to text Aspen, but so learned the hard way. But we found 2 last year, so I forgot.
I was gonna say you guys found 2 last year, so made up for it.
Yeah, all is forgiven, but but it was a lot of fun herping with you guys for sure. I kind of invited myself on that one because I heard Keith was coming over, and I'm like, oh, Keith McPeak's coming. Okay, well, hey, would it be all right if I head down around the same time? Chris is like, I guess. And then that was because the original trip was planned for like 2018 or sometime earlier. And then Keith couldn't make it. And I'm like, do you guys care if I still come down? Because I had taken work off and I was all ready to come. And they're like, sure. So I went out with Chris and Aspen. We found that same Gila. So we found it this last year. That was the 3rd time because you guys found it. So
right, I was going to say one of the first one was a repeat for the 3rd time that you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
It's a neat looking one.
Yeah, he's got.
He doesn't seem too worse for wear at this point.
Mm-hmm. He is. I mean, he looks a little older, but he's still trucking. So, yeah, he looked a little skinny the first. Well, he looked okay. Yeah, but he has that kind of key pattern on his head and neck. So, we're like, hey, this is key. So,
the major key.
That's a great place. I love herping St. George. It's a lot of fun. So, yep. Well, it seems like you've done quite a bit of herping since you moved to. You're in South Carolina?
North Carolina.
Okay. One of the Carolinas.
Yeah, I mean, the weather here is great. The last year, when I moved down here, I was like, man, I heard that you can herp year round here, so I'm going to do that. And so when I first moved here, I was like, my goal is to just find at least one snake every month. And there's only been 1 month since I moved down here that I haven't done that.
Wow. Nice.
But last year, every month we found a snake. I found my January snake so far this year. I'm still working on my February one, and I'm running out of time. It's very frustrating. But weather's supposed to be decent this weekend, so I'm going to try and get out there. But yeah, I love herping was what I was able to do first because I wasn't allowed to keep snakes when I was a kid. And so I've always had a deep need to just see snakes out in the wild. And so when I came out here and I was like, oh man, there's way more variety of species. You can see lizards here because coming from Massachusetts, there's no lizards. There's like, you see 2 snake species most of the time. It's like garter snakes and water snakes, and that's about it unless you like hit very, specific areas. And so my job has me outside a lot. So when I'm doing pest control inspections for people's homes, I'm like, I got to check under this board real quick. I got to look under your downspouts real quick. There's a log over there. I'm checking for termites. Let me just roll this real quick. And so I get a lot of herping done coincidentally on the clock. Nice. And I'm doing inspections for people, but I see a lot of snakes while I'm doing it. So
yeah, that's cool. That's it. Yeah. You gotta make do where you can, right?
If I got to be out there anyway.
Yeah. Why not? That's cool. So, how's the herping community out there? Are you just mainly solo, or have you found some fellow herpers out there?
I know a few people kind of local to me who are herpers. Trace Harden is close by. We have gone out once, but we haven't gone out again. He's super busy all the time, and I always hate bothering him. But he's awesome. I've known him for over a decade. He's awesome. Mm-hmm. His buddy Thomas, TCR Herps on Instagram. He is an incredible herper. Like, he is light years ahead of me when it comes to all the stuff out here, because he's in the area and he's driving and he's better at road cruising and all that stuff. So he sees so many amazing things. I'm jealous. And
that's cool.
He's put me to like general areas for a couple spots. And so he's just like awesome. But most of the time I honestly just go by myself and, or go with my partner, Kristen, and just like, trek around, do a little hike, look in these areas, try and find where things kind of end up. And I find that it's easier for me to just go out on my own and, figure things out.
Yeah. That's awesome when you can herp with your partner as well. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
She loves the salamander. So as long as there's some salamander thing going on there, she's down.
Yeah. She wouldn't enjoy Utah much. We got a whole one species out here. And
she likes the other stuff too, but her heart is with the salamanders.
Yeah. Got to have your favorites, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the coolest thing you found out there so far?
Coolest thing that I've found in North Carolina, I went to Emerald Isle, which is on the coast, and there's a park out there called the Croatan, and it's a really, really big park. Mm-hmm. And we found a Eastern Chain King out there, and the thing was on death's door. It was like all bunged up. It was in shed. The thing was, malnourished. But that's the first time I found a wild king snake, East Coast, and I was just like over the moon, just super hyped. It was kind of cold out. We had road cruised for like 2 hours, didn't see a thing, and we got out, we're watching the sunset, and we're like, oh man, this is such a bummer. And I'm just like, it looks like there'd be a snake right here. And then I see the tail end of it going down into some roots of grass, and I like grabbed it, and I was like, I'm not letting go. I'm not. It's coming back out one way or the other.
That's awesome.
So I think that was the coolest thing I found. But then I've also found anerythrostic worm snakes, which is pretty cool. I've seen 2 or 3 of them since I've been here, because they're usually like a dark brown black color on top, and then they usually have a red stomach. And I found 2 or 3 of them that are all white bellied, and they're not in shed. They're like just shed, crisp, white bellies. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Worm snakes. I don't know if I've seen any worm snakes in.
I think we saw one in Jersey.
Did we?
Is that what that was? Yeah.
Oh,
that's a flip.
Yeah. We did see that.
A heck of a thing to try and take a picture of.
Yeah, they're terrible. So they're like, this big, and barely tell that it's a snake.
We thought we had a solid background for it, and so we put the cup over it, and we're waiting for it to settle down. And we lift up the cup, and everybody's ready to take a picture, and it's not there. And we're like, wait a second. No. We're like sifting through. Oh, it burrowed right down into it. It was pretty good escape artist there. Yeah, that's funny.
It was like solid surface, but there was a leaf litter pile on top. And so, it was like, okay, it'll be safe. And it was, but it was just below a half-inch leaf litter on the rock or whatever. But, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty
They are tough to get a photo of. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking blind snakes. I've seen a bunch of
those guys
in Australia. Yeah, they smell horrible. They don't stop moving. We had one on like a tin sheet, and it was just like a treadmill. It was just sitting there, trying to go somewhere, and it was going nowhere, but it was moving the whole time. It was pretty funny. Mm-hmm. But yeah,
although your small cow king was like that too, and it drove me insane for about 45 minutes because it would not stop moving.
I can't lie, that was kind of entertaining to watch. But it can be young snakes and certain species are just almost impossible to photograph. You need some like ice or something to cool them down, settle them down. Yeah.
Or be happy with. Cool. Fortunately, I think the picture I'm most happy with because of their pattern is one where actually that movement is happening, but it actually just sort of blurs out and looks super cool. but you get you can still tell the functionality of it. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't know. You're still keeping herps. You got your scrubs and some other stuff. Those going well. Your project's doing well.
Yeah. I mean, I've bred scrubs twice now since I've moved down here. I bred Janet, my Prada line Barneck, the year that I moved down here, so 2022. And then last year I bred a wild caught female Barneck to the wild caught male that I've got. And so I produced the one clutch 2022, one clutch 2023. This year I've already got them kind of together, and I've seen one lock, but usually the females don't start cycling for me until April, May is when they like start to go into their cycle. So I'm not really looking at anything right now as like definitive until we get closer to May, June is when we start getting towards seeing where eggs are going. So
very cool. Yeah.
And then I got corn snakes and bloods and short tails and I got a bunch of stuff.
Nice.
Branchulas.
That's cool. Yeah. Or there was a lot of excitement around your Barnecks. Are they still people still pretty excited for those? And
yeah. I mean, I think that there was only 2 people in the U.S. that bred Barnecks last year. Me and Stephen Cush, I think. And then the year before, I think the same thing. And then Stephen produced the Highland scrubs last year. And there was another person who produced Highlands last year as well. There's a lot of buzz around the Barnecks. People love them. I think that once people see the Highlands more, I think that they'll get more attention because they're just as pretty as the Clastolepis, in my opinion. It's just people don't know what they are, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I guess I've always found that struggle with carpets as well. Like people know carpet python, but they don't know the different species that, in the complex. So it's probably the same for the scrub people too. You know, people have heard of a scrub python, but they don't know there's all these different species. And
there are different species. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And there's probably more to be described and properly separated out and stuff. I know there's the 2 in Australia, kind of the ones up in the Northern Cape and then more towards Cairns down the bottom of the Cape, but I haven't seen the northern ones yet, just the southern ones around Cairns. We've seen a handful of those, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you didn't see any up north, huh?
Not in Iron Range. No, we didn't see. No, just in the tablelands. So
and they're more of a lavender faded.
Yeah, they're really pretty, kind of honey colored, really nice looking. My buddy Steve has some over in South Australia. We were just at his house on the last, in October when I went over, and they're beautiful snakes. Those just really kind of, I don't know, iridescent tones and the honey color. I'll have to send you guys a picture. I took a couple pictures of his captives out in the sunlight and stuff. But yeah, they're just beautiful snakes.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And, with everything with, New Guinea and kind of that, everything in the Northern Cape is pretty much the same as in Southern New Guinea. So, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out, if they'll be aligned with some of those Southern, Aru types or not. But
if they do group that into the same species, then a lot of people are about to have some illegal snakes, because even whenever they put in big snakes, they always put in King Ornai, even though they're generally not in the U.S. They're on a bunch of states as banned, even though they're not here. So if they group them with that, it's like Southerns are one of the most common scrubs that are bred in the U.S. So
well, and I think that dividing line will exclude. I think King Horneye will still be a thing. And we still won't have any of those, but kind of that Northern Cape species, I don't know how that will relate to the Southern New Guinea stuff. Yeah. So the King Horneye are south of that, that biogeographical barrier. I think, as far as I know, I could be talking out my butt for sure. So if I haven't kept up with I don't know, for some reason, my interest kind of wanes as you leave Australia and enter New Guinea. I mean, I'm fascinated by them. They're cool. I'd love to see them in the wild, but Australia is kind of where my heart and attention stays. So I don't know.
I feel like the opposite. I'm like, I love all the stuff from Southeast Asia. And then as you get to Australia, I'm like, oh, those are cool. But it's like, it doesn't hold me as much as the stuff from Southeast Asia. So I don't know why.
Yeah, I guess I've always just had that fascination with Australian reptiles, and it's just always stuck. So, yeah, to each their own. If we all like the same thing, it'd be a pretty boring world.
Really boring. Yeah. Really, really boring.
And I mean, I love all the reptiles. I'm fascinated and, love to learn about them. And there's probably 100 different species I'd like to keep, but, you kind of have to focus and unless you want to be moving projects every other year or something, but.
No.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. Well, why don't you kind of tell everybody where you fit into herpetoculture, maybe a little background, and then we'll get to fighting.
Okay. Yeah, I'm down. So my name's Rob Christian. Originally, I'm from New England, and I have been a lifelong reptile person. When I was a kid, before I could talk, I was picking up snakes in my yard. And from that point on, that's the only thing I cared about 100%, And so I spent a lot of time out in my yard herping. My dad is not from the U.S. He's from the Caribbean and is just terrified of snakes. So that's like his worst nightmare, is having a son who's like only cares about snakes. But so, I wasn't allowed to keep snakes when I was a kid. My mom had tarantulas when I was little, so I grew up with tarantulas. Then we got like frogs and lizards, and eventually I ended up getting some snakes down the road. And that's when like everything just like kind of exploded. My mother and I opened up an educational business where we did programs at schools, birthday parties, summer camps. We did that for 7 or 8 years. We did the Boston Public Library system 2 or 3 times, where we were doing like 3 shows a day for hundreds and hundreds of kids.
Yeah.
And
how old were you at the time?
I think that was closer towards the end. So I was probably like 20 years old when that happened.
Yeah.
We started it when I was like in elementary school or elementary or middle school. Yeah. So, we did it from when I was like 12 years old or so up until I was 21. And then, she went to Arizona to do work out there. And so I was like, in school and working at the time. So we shut the business down then. I went to Maine to manage a reptile store. When that store closed, I went to Nerd and was doing sales and education and social media at New England Reptile Distributors. I was there for 5 years, and then I moved to North Carolina. And so, that's like the little graph of where I've been and everything. So, nice. I mean, I've always had a love for snakes and arachnids and creepy crawlies and all that stuff. So that's in a nutshell.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. It's, I guess it seems, kind of the opposite of a lot of people, where they start out, liking but then they keep them, and then that gets them into herping, but rather you started out kind of more herping, and I guess maybe we all kind of herped a bit.
That's little toads and stuff in your yard. It's like exactly. Doing programs, I would get a lot of kids who are like, I like catching things in my yard, and that's a lot of people's first little taste of it. And then society gets to you and says, no, put those things down, they're gross, blah blah blah, leave them alone, put them in the yard, like don't touch them. And a lot of people just grow out of that, and they're pushed out of that.
Yeah.
And then there's some people like us who not quite, you're like, right. No, I'm gonna catch that. I'm gonna jump in that pond and grab that turtle.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of dudes kind of leave reptiles in pursuit of women. They get to that age where they're like, these are blocking me from getting girlfriends or whatever. So I'll come back to them later or something. But yeah, I was never one to let that deter me. But I remember one time we were on a date and we were hiking up this waterfall canyon, and we found a rattlesnake just right on the trail there. And it wasn't rattling or anything. Like, it looked like it had broken rattles, maybe gone through some. And I mean, this was a very popular hiking spot. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to take this one home. And like, I asked my date, I'm like, can I borrow your sweatshirt? She had like a sweatshirt tied around her waist. And she's like, what are you going to do with it? I'm like, you don't want to know. So I tied it off, made a little makeshift snake bag out of her sweatshirt and put it in there and, brought it home and kept it for a few years until I found out it was illegal and gave it away to somebody. But, that was, I always had snakes when I had, my girlfriends, they'd come over and, see the snakes or whatever, but yep.
Yeah, that's always just never been an option for me. Like the snakes are me. I am the snakes, and there's no separating the two. Exactly. I have a tough time thinking about things that are not snakes. Like when I was in elementary school and learning vocabulary words, I had to make them about reptiles, even if they weren't about reptiles, to the point where like my teachers wrote home to my parents and they were like, we understand that Robert likes reptiles, but like he's got to write about something else. He has to understand that there's things outside of snakes. And my brain couldn't do it. I was like, I don't know.
For my elementary, summer reading thing, you do the reading challenge or whatever. My dad brought home a herpetology textbook thinking it would slow me down or something.
Nope.
He said I read the whole thing and I had like all my pets mapped out taxonomically and all these, I was using all this terminology. He's like, what are you even talking about?
I did the same thing.
One book, for the summer reading. Everybody's getting like 100 books or something.
My parents did the same thing. They were like, looking at all the age appropriate books and they're like, Robert's already reading like complex books about reptiles. Can he just write about that? Because these other books are like not at the same level. And the teachers were like, I guess. So that's what I wrote my book reports on, was all the different field guides and, books about, care and captive keeping and stuff. Yeah.
I still remember the elementary school library had one of Caulfield's books. I think it was Keeper and the Kept. But I do remember checking that out quite a few times and, copying some of the figures and things like that. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Yep, I think a lot of us have that in common, where we just have that drive and nothing's going to dissuade us. Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess your background kind of leads us into the topic too, with your education, and Rob came up with this topic about are we obliged to educate the public? Rob Stone, Rob S, and so he invited Rob C, Bobby Pebbles, the best nickname ever. Thank you, Schmitty.
The Rock, Bob Rock.
Bob Rock is a good one still. Yeah, that's a little tougher than Bobby Pebbles, but Bobby Pebbles makes me laugh. So anyway, Rob Stone came up with the idea to talk about, whether we're obliged to educate and how much education is helpful, and that kind of idea. So we're going to fight about that today. So what who better than Rob C to discuss that. So Rob and I will go ahead, Rob S and I will go ahead and flip the coin to see who gets to fight you, and then we'll go from there. So go ahead and call it, Bob Rock.
Heads.
It is heads.
Wow.
You won the coin toss.
That's rare.
Good job. What would you like to do?
I want to hear what you have to say, though. So there you go. You get to fight anyway.
Okay. I think, sounds good to me. All right. Now, Rob C., let's have you call the next flip here, which was not a great flip, but...
I'm going to go with tails.
It is tails. So I'm a double loser today.
The Robs have it. Let's go.
You guys got it. Rob Power.
It's just Rob squared.
Yeah. I'm used to Ustin Power with Dustin Gron. But yeah. All right. So which side would you like to defend? Are you more pro education in your social media, or it's not really necessary? What do you think?
Honestly, I could go either way on this one. I think that I should argue the side that it doesn't always have to be educational, because I think that's going to be more challenging for me.
All right. I like it. That's what this show is about, seeing both sides, right? So
yes, sir.
Okay, and then as the winner, the big winner of the coin flip, you get to decide if you go first or if you want me to lead us out.
How about this? I'll do you an honor, and I'll go first.
Oh wow,
So it's a little bit harder. I think most of the guests find it harder to go first, and
yeah.
I think that I'll take that on.
All right, you got it, man. Okay.
All right, perfect. So it's very fitting that we're talking about this this topic on today, which is, hold on, I gotta look at the date, February 22nd, which is Steve Irwin's birthday.
Oh, whoa, yeah. Crazy.
And so we're talking about education and whether or not education always, or about communication with the public, and whether our content always has to be educational. Yeah. And there is like so much that Steve Irwin has done for education, for reptiles in general. You know, most people, I would venture to say before Steve would have said that, you know, crocodiles, kill them, get rid of them, alligators, they're big, nasty, they're mindless killing machines, get rid of them. They're like this close to being Jaws, you know, where everyone just hates them and can't stand them. Yeah. And Steve had a way of, you know, educating and getting people interested in that sort of thing. And one of the things that I learned through doing education with the public is that the average person does not understand the things that we understand. They have a very, very, very minimal understanding of the creatures that inhabit the world around them. And for a lot of people, you know, if you start saying the Latin name or talking about the natural habits right off the bat on things, you just lose people. They're not interested because it's not something that they can relate to in their life. You know, most people don't talk anything Latin, period, in any portion of their life, you know?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I look at when it comes to outreach and the content that we post is that we need to be able to reach people, because if you don't reach people, then there's no, like, you can have the most information on the planet on a certain species, but if you can't communicate that, if you can't get people interested in that, then it just goes to waste. It's just gone, you know? And so on Steve Irwin's birthday, well, you know, I think that is very fitting because people look at him very fondly in the past. But if he were to come out today, I feel like he would not be looked on as kindly with how he handles some of the, you know, snakes, venomous snakes. He was, you know, free handling things very regularly, taking lots of liberties with you know, highly toxic snakes. And that's something that, you know, I feel like I'm someone who looks fairly critically on those things as well, especially with the people nowadays and how they portray their content. But you can't deny that it gets people interested. It gets the average person who knows nothing about snakes to look. And they might be looking just to see if this guy dies or not, but they're looking. And in the current social media economy that we're in, attention is everything. And if you can harbor attention, you can get a message across. And so I'll pause there. I'll let you have a rebuttal because I will keep topping on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to start it out. And I agree, but I think it's hard for somebody like Steve Irwin or like yourself with so much passion and excitement about things. I think that's almost a form of education in and of itself, right? If somebody sees, okay, this guy loves these things, you know, there must be something interesting or special about them. I'm gonna check that out, you know, or I'm gonna learn more about that, you know. So it's really hard to kind of draw the line between, you know, education in so many different forms, I guess. So maybe it's cheating a little bit to say that, but I think, you know, that passion, you know, kind of educates people in a way, you know, and I think you're right. I mean, most people could care less about a scientific name or the fact that there's more than one type of carpet python or scrub python, you know, and so, and, you know, that's, I don't know, I guess, I think, you know, there is that, danger, in the words of Steve Irwin, to make things more about entertainment than education, you know, and I guess maybe it's my own fault because I was always drawn to programs that are, education oriented. Like I did enjoy Steve Irwin because he was showing Australian animals, Australian reptiles, which is my huge passion. And I'd be a little less excited when he was in Africa or somewhere else. I'm like, I mean, it's still cool, and I still like those. But, my main draw was because he was finding Australian reptiles. But the thing that kind of turned me off a little was how everything was overhyped. Everything was so dangerous. Or, the thing that got me was when they were driving on a road and he's like, we could flip the vehicle at any moment. And I'm like, okay, enough with the over dramatization. I guess but one of the shows I really liked was Harry Butler. I don't know if you ever saw Into the Wild with Harry Butler. It's kind of an old school one. And I remember seeing it like as a kid, well, maybe a late teenager, but he was doing shows back in the 80s and maybe even, I mean, they look old today. So I bought the box set off of Amazon and it's pretty sweet, but he's like an old school naturalist. He's got his Australian hat on and he'd throw his hat over a tiger snake and like pick up the tiger snake in his hat. And then he'd work it out and pin it, and so he could show. And he's like, no drama at all. It's like, this is a tiger snake. Look how beautiful he is. Look at those fangs, see the venom dripping or whatever. And just like no drama, no, frantic flailing around and catching things and stuff. But, he could catch stuff with the best of them for sure. But he was always really calm and like laid back. And I guess I really enjoyed that. And I guess I've always been kind of drawn to educational things because I have that thirst to learn. But I do appreciate that most people could care less. And I think if you can get them interested in something, they'll learn, at least this is not a dangerous thing, or this is not something to be scared of, or whatever, and when, so I guess it's hard to not educate people when you're passionate about something in some way. So maybe that's a little bit of a cheat, but I'm going to go that way. Over to you.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And, there are always going to be people who are drawn to that more educational content. And when you look at how the internet is set up nowadays, where, anyone who's got a phone can start making content about whatever they're interested in, you get all these different venues for people who are interested in those different things. And if you look at people like Clint's Reptiles, he is like educational. He is, cut and dry. He's a very educational guy. And he does get a good amount of attention, right? Because he is educating people, and he is, there is always going to be those people who seek out that kind of content. But if you take a look at the type of reach that he's getting, and then you take a look at the reach from people who are going, whoa, and, jumping and doing this and doing, over, being overly dramatic when it comes to those things, the reach difference is huge. Yeah. And when you look at even things like, we're talking about like the Steve Irwin show, the Crocodile Hunter, they would put those, the snake hissing over the snake's not actually hissing, but when it like whips real quick, they'll throw a hiss in over it because it grabs your attention and gets you locked in on that moment where he's holding it. He's just going, okay, it's dodging, dipping. He's doing what he's what he does. Yeah. But producers, editors, the people behind the scenes are going, okay, the average person's going to get bored if they just see him, tail it real quick and throw, put it out there and just stand in front of it and talk for a second. Yeah. We have to think about, because like when I think about things, I look at things like all of this through the lens of people who are trying to make content to reach other people. They're not trying to reach me, because I'm going to go out and I'm going to seek out the information. If it's in a book in a library, I'm going to go find it, right? Because I want that information. They want the attention of the person who's casually going by and they're going, oh, I don't really know anything about snakes. Let me take a look at this for a minute. And people who are strictly educational are not going to get that. Like, you might get some people who trickle that in here and there, but the people who, get the view and the attention are the people who are, putting in that or a rattlesnake when it's actually a cobra that's on the screen, or, the putting a kookaburra in the forest in Africa. It's all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And, I interviewed for a show that they were trying to put together for the History Channel, where they're going to send guys out to find the deadliest everything. We're going to send you to Africa. We're going to send you to Australia and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And, the questions that they're asking me in those things is like, how crazy are you going to go when you get, out there, when you see, do you consider yourself a risk taker? Would you pick it up even if it has the potential to bite you? And me as a person, I'm not like that. And so that's why I, didn't end up going any further than the second interview, but I was like, I'm not going to go crazy. I will make it interesting, but I'm not a super risk taking person. I can make it interesting even if I am not touching the animal. I have got that where I can just like get a little bit of people's attention. But that's not what they're looking for. They're in a production team. They want stuff that's going to grab people's attention. They want to see someone get wrapped up by a giant snake. They want to pitch some guy getting eaten by an anaconda, Yeah. And think about the number of people that tuned into that, even though nothing happened. The amount of people I had. Family members who, have never touched a snake in their life who reached out, hey, did you hear the guy that was going to get eaten by the anaconda? And then I, roll my eyes and I'm going, no. And then, listen to interviews of him afterwards. And he's like, well, they said it was going to be an educational program. I signed a contract and then they told me that I'm going to get eaten alive. And they said if I dip out now that I'm going to get sued and I'm never going to work in the industry again. So, all of these different things are going into the background of the bigger production content that the average person sees. And all of that starts with grabbing attention and not with the education. And there are people who are good at doing both the education and grabbing the attention. One of the people, I think it was like Savannah over at Gatorland. She is a super energetic person, really gets you in there, but she knows so much about crocodilians, and I really admire that about her. And there's not a lot of people that can bridge the gap like that. Either people can be really educational and really reckless and whatever, or they can be really educational. And it's not a lot of people that can bridge the gap to make it, educational in both. Yeah. And so I think I'll pass the baton on to you for that one.
Sounds good. Yeah, I guess I would probably cite Planet Earth as probably one of the hallmark things that educated people and got them also excited. Because, honestly, like I love Steve Irwin and I love all his contributions, but I did not like that dramatization and the hype and all that kind of stuff that came with it. And not, Steve Irwin was fine, but everybody that came after that, trying to replicate that and seeing that as a mechanism for success. You've got to be over dramatic and crazy and jumping and grabbing and things like that. And then you get people like Austin Stevens. It was just kind of almost comical how, they've got the camera set up. So it's like, you can rotate him and, and as he's jumping on a cobra in the lake or something. It's just kind of ridiculous. But I mean, honestly, I still watched him because he's still chasing reptiles in the wild. And I thought it was cool. But, compared to like maybe Mark O'Shea, where you might not even see the animal he's tracking down because it was the real deal, yeah. Rob?
So this is interesting, right? Because a week ago we found out that season 1, which is the original 13 episodes of O'Shea's Big Adventure, right, which I'm sure we had seen at the time. I remember it, all of it sort of hit that way, but at least in the U.S. you can buy it for not that much to view it on Amazon Prime. I think in the UK it's actually free, but, such it is. But so I've done that. I'm halfway through it at this point. And the funny thing is the drama doesn't occur, which maybe actually makes sense if you listen to Mark enough or met him. But all the drama that happens in his show is his interpersonal relationships and or conflict with other people, the local scientists whose toes he's stepping on, or his approach or his methodology they don't like. So when he's in Brazil and they're looking for the Bushmaster, it's, oh, well, they want to be able to grab it first, or they're not going to keep going on the expedition with them. Or whatever it is. Oh, they're uncomfortable with how he's interacting with the animal. I mean, heck, it's a real Pine Barrens treat there, Justin. But that sort of thing. So yeah, it's super interesting that the drama in those shows. Because to your point, right? There's his key principle was that there would be no staged animals. There are some captive animals that are presented as being captive, particularly before they would find something. But that was kind of the key effort of the endeavor. And in fact, the one I just watched on Splendid Leaf Frogs, they failed to find, they could hear it calling. They failed to find it. They come back to where they had initially been looking, and the guy has a pair in a bucket that then go to the Manchester Zoo. But it was sort of a half, it was honestly presented. It wasn't that he had found them. It was, the sort of the additional conflict of, well, you went to this other place, didn't find, you heard it calling, but didn't locate it when it started raining, all this stuff. You come back and, well, here they are in a bucket. But it wasn't, oh, look, they're just behind the hacienda here. Yeah. But at the same time, there's a ton of interpersonal conflict with like, oh, Mark is aggravating the local scientists who don't feel like he's properly respecting them.
Yeah, right. I guess, you're going to find entertainment. And I think maybe Planet Earth did that by just showing the dynamic lives of these animals. And, honestly, a lot of reptiles are kind of boring. They'll just, like an ambush predator, they're just going to sit there. You're going to get some cool footage if you catch that, 20 that seconds of excitement and drama when they strike at prey and maybe hit it or something. And, showing the rattlesnakes sitting in ambush waiting for a rodent to pass by and filming that was pretty amazing. And I mean, the Galapagos iguana sequence is some of the best wildlife documentary footage I've ever seen. And that just had my jaw on the floor as, an adult. Like I'd seen lots of nature documentaries, and that was the first just jaw-dropping amazing footage, and you didn't even really care what the species were, but you got educated as what was going on with those animals, and so I do think that there is a way to educate and still entertain, because these animals are fascinating. They do so many interesting behaviors. And there's a guy in India that's a photographer, and I can't remember his name. I feel bad. I probably should have thought about him, but he just came into my mind as being somebody who, puts out on social media and he shows their natural behaviors, and you're just watching like, wow, that is cool. It's these some sort of Indian lizard, but they've got these big dewlaps and they flare them out, bright blue or something. And they're like jumping, and he's got a couple males fighting, on video and stuff. And it's really, really pretty cool stuff. So, I've always been the opinion, like, let the animals do the talking. Like I try to just film nature happening and then, showing it, on a YouTube video. And granted, I've got hundreds of views or something, whereas, Chandler getting bit by a cobra probably has millions of views, that kind of thing. So people like drama, but also for the most part, people are kind of stupid, and they probably need more education rather than entertainment. We're constantly entertaining ourselves rather than learning something. So I apologize if the listener falls into that category, but hopefully not. Hopefully you're a highbrow sort that listens to this podcast.
Self-selecting for a higher brow, if you're listening to our voices right now, you're probably not a part of that group. But
I also remember, like, I know a guy that was kind of behind the scenes with that Venom show that Barczyk did, where he was in Australia looking for venomous snakes to milk to sell the venom or whatever. And that almost had the opposite effect. I think people realize that's not how things are done. And it was just too much of a false premise and setup, and it just didn't I think because of that, it didn't take off. And my friend said he had all the proper gear because some of his animals were the animals that he found in the wild, and so they were definitely planted and staged and things for him to come upon. Now they did find a few wild things, and that was kind of the objective, but they also always had something in reserve for him to find. Yeah. A big, giant pet snake that was just crawling across, in broad daylight kind of thing. And, for Brian to jump on, but he said he had like the giant hoop bags for snake captures that make it very safe, and and the producers were like, no, give him a like a
little pillowcase, something
pillowcase, that they'll barely fit in, and I mean you can see him struggling just to tie it off, once he gets the snake inside of it. It's like, and my friend's like, that's kind of dangerous for no reason. Like nobody, I guess there's drama in trying to get a giant venomous snake into a, small pillowcase, but like, what really? That's what we've become. This is where our society is leading, just entertainment, just for entertainment's sake. And frankly, I mean, I think it's just contributing to the dumbing of America, but I don't know. That's kind of the reason I think we need educational content, at least to some extent. And you're right. I mean, maybe for the masses, throwing scientific names out there or just showing the animals doing what they do is not enough to grab their attention. But hopefully, I hear a lot of people that are pretty deep into herpetoculture talk about how Steve Irwin brought him in. That was the one, that's the person who made the difference. So for every slackjaw yokel out there, like, that's like, oh, wow, he got bit, that kind of looking for the drama that way. There's hopefully more that are saying, wow, those animals are fascinating. And Steve Irwin's a hero and a legend. He brought me into the hobby. And, that's kind of, what I hope is the outcome. But, you see things like Turtle Man and it's kind of just stupid shows, but yeah.
As a quick interjection that I think Rob will appreciate. So this is a story from 22 years ago. There was a really nice, like 3.5 foot wild blood python with a beautiful stripe, like a tri-stripe look to it, that I had seen from a West Coast vendor that must have just got it from Cam, just as sort of a mix in. It was not something they would usually have, right? But your story about with Brian and the tiny bags is, so as I say, 3.5 foot, and I got a 9x9x9 box, and it was in a bag in a 9x9x9 box.
Oh,
so
man.
It had come on a snow, a day with snow, and thankfully there wasn't a heat pack. Obviously, it filled the entire mass of that box. There's no heat pack or anything like that, so it was a cold day with snow, and I pulled it out, so it just all sort of unfurled, opened the bag and the whole thing, Jack
like the
box.
spring snakes.
Yeah, and so I was holding it like this, and you can feel it's cold, but you see the little eye, I see the eye twitch, and I pull my head to the side, and the head goes over the shoulder, and I was like, this is an experience that I won't forget, 22 years later, I haven't forgotten. So, certainly something. But, in terms of what you can put into what size bag and or box, if I guess if you have patience.
I have had to put some things in some bags that were very risky, not venomous stuff, but other things. And let me tell you, I wish there was some security camera footage of it because, oh my goodness, you ever try to get a croc monitor into a pillowcase to ship it, man?
Ouch, yeah.
No, man, no. You trim the claws and you put them in, and then they just like it's nothing. They still just go right through. I'll tell you, you never want to get the call from FedEx.
Right. Well, I think Chris Foley. Oh, this was an Owen story from 2011 or whatever that they had bought both a croc monitor and a white lip or something like that, and they wound up with a bloody box with a croc monitor in it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they shipped them together. Oh,
two different bags, but that didn't do much.
That doesn't matter. Yeah, that doesn't.
Yeah,
no.
Oh, God, that's terrible.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, what to that point of like, think if you had that on camera, that miss right there, you could have had 10 million views on YouTube. That equates to roughly like $30,000 off of a silly video of a blood python. I'm just saying. All jokes aside.
Yeah.
I think that for a lot of people, the foot in the door is yahoos and people who just grab your attention and they go, wow, that cobra is insane. And then they go, I don't really know anything about cobras. And then they like look a little bit deeper into things and they go, oh, wow, there's so much more information out there than just the thing that grabbed my attention initially, than just seeing someone getting wrapped up by a big reticulated python, more than watching somebody lose their finger to a cobra bite. There is all of this other stuff. And, the thing that got them in the door is not necessarily the thing that they identify with their whole way through the hobby and the industry and their journey with reptiles. It was just the thing that kind of set that domino to fall to get people in. And one of the things that I've seen a lot with kids who I have met through doing educational programs or being at Nerd and giving tours and things like that is that you get some kids who are like, oh man, I love this guy because he just like picks up cobras and blah, 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 blah. But for every child you get like that, I would get like 5 or 10 that would come in and just be like, oh, Emily from Snake Discovery is the coolest person I've ever heard of. She just has really cool animals. She gives you lots of information and I'll just sit there and just watch her all day. Yeah. And so that educational portion will get some people in the door. And then the average person or the person who might not have been interested otherwise gets caught by the other person,
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I bring up when people talk about Steve Irwin is like, he free-handled things. He, took a lot of liberties with animals that I wouldn't be comfortable doing that with. Mm-hmm. But the amount of reach that he got from those sort of things, people didn't just say, okay, Steve Irwin is the only thing I'm going to know about crocodiles or about, any of the number of things that he was showcasing. A lot of people went on to learn more about those things, and they still appreciated him for the entertainment value of things. But they learned much more than that, as opposed to if they never was exposed to that, or they were just exposed to a documentary, it might not have piqued their interest to learn more about things. And I did a talk for the New England Herp Society. Man, it had been, I don't know, 10 years ago now or something, 8, 10, something like that. And one of the things I was telling people is that, I have cultivated my life, my social media, my relationships. Everything for me is centered around reptiles. And so people who know me know about reptiles by force. They don't have an option. They're going to learn things one way or the other because that's all I talk about. That's all I post about. That's, that is where my mind is at 24/7. Yeah. And, the people who are on my friends list or the people who follow me are interested in that. Mm-hmm. But there are millions of homes in the country that have a pet leopard gecko, who have a pet bearded dragon, who, that's just like their little pet. Their kid got interested in it. They did a little bit of research. They got one. And one of the things I was saying at that meeting is that people need to share that with other people, because the people who see my stuff know what they're going to get. But if your neighbor from in your neighborhood group posts up a picture of their bearded dragon, that is going to trigger questions. And that will get more people involved and get more people interested. And it doesn't have to be educational. You could say, this is my buddy Spike. He's a bearded dragon, and let me tell you, when I would do educational programs, I could bring out, I don't know, something really cool. I could bring out a Spilotes, right? Spilotes pilatus, these tiger rat snakes, big, beautiful, awesome, slow tongue flicks, puffed out throat. I'm like, this thing is so cool. They come from South America. They climb all in the trees. If you look at the shape of their body, they're so cool. Yeah. People are like, oh, okay. I bring out an albino rosy boa. Hey, this is an albino rosy boa. Its name is Mac and Cheese. Boom. Every single person in that room fell in love. They know what mac and cheese is. They like the name of that animal. They are now invested in that animal. And I didn't teach them anything about it. Afterwards I'll go through and teach them about it. But to get that attention, to get people in the door, they need to have something that they can relate to them. Because I think for a lot of people, the educational aspect of things is they can't relate to it. Mm-hmm. If they watch, someone going out and grabbing a taipan, outside of Australia, they just, there's no frame of reference for them. They're going, okay, mm-hmm. He's saying the snake is deadly. Maybe it is deadly. Maybe it isn't deadly. Most people don't know. You could grab a brown snake and tell them it's a taipan, and they're not going to know. They have no idea. But when I would bring out a turtle and tell people that his name is Michelangelo and he's a mutant ninja turtle, every person in there goes, "Oh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I am invested in whatever else you have to say right now. It doesn't matter what I have to say, but they're there and they're invested." And that's when you can get to the education portion of it. And you don't even have to go crazy with it. Most people don't know that a turtle shell is part of their body. I can't tell you how many people who I would bring a turtle out and I would say, "Hey, look," I would usually bring a specimen of a carapace so you can see the inside of it. Say, "Look at this. This is the inside of a real turtle shell." And you can see the spine and the ribs. It's just like you. You've got all those same things too. And they go, "Oh, I thought that it was just like a hermit crab where they just came right out of their shell." People have no frame of reference.
Yeah.
And so getting them in the door, getting something that they can relate to, something that they can hold on to, mm-hmm. engages them. And then they can educate later. And a lot of times they will. Sometimes they won't. If you look at the 10 million views on a cobra bite video, not every one of those people is going to go out and educate themselves about anti-venom and neurotoxic venom and, all these different things that are very interesting to us. Yeah. But they will watch that and maybe learn a little bit of something about snakes on the way. And so I think that education, really, we need to find ways as people who are passionate about these animals, we need to find ways to get connection with the average person because they have no frame of reference. I can't even tell you the amount of people who would see a python and they're like, "Is that a snake?" They're like, you bring out blue tongue skink and they're like, "That's a snake." And you're like, "No, it's got legs. Look at the little legs." "Oh yeah, it does kind of have legs on there. I had no idea." They're like, "What kind of creature is that?" I don't know, because they just have no idea. They have no frame of reference. And that's where the entertainment portion comes in, because entertainers, people who are truly good at entertaining, mm-hmm. make it relatable for the people who are watching it. And that gets way more people to come in and to be interested than just strictly being educational. And that's one of the things that I had a really tough time learning, because when I was just starting out doing educational programs, I'd be like, "This is a Solomon Island ground boa, Candoia paulsoni. These come from, over here, and they get this big, and they eat primarily And my mom would tell me all the time, "Please, dumb it down, dumb it down, dumb it down, dumb it down. Stop, no Latin names. Give it a name. Talk to the people." And, that's one of the things I had to learn really young was make it relatable. And once you can do that, that is what will get you over all the other hurdles of all the other things that are going on. People can be afraid. People can be apprehensive. People can have all of these things going on. But if you can entertain them a little bit and you can make it relatable to them, you can actually get to that portion where you can educate people.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's hard to be scared of a snake named Macaroni and Cheese, You
can't. I'm just saying, I've won over so many old women with that one. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They say it's mac and cheese, or more recently, palmetto corn snake, funfetti. Boom, everyone's sold. Funfetti cake. I love funfetti cake. I'm touching that snake. I want to take one home today.
Yeah. That's and I do, I fully appreciate that we need to have that, what's the word? the excitement, that passion, that, you know, just the entertainment side of things. But, you know, we also, I think, you know, there needs to be a balance. There needs to be the you know, the more nerdy source or that more nerdy place to go. And, yeah, the one will get them in the door. And I think there's definitely a place for that. For sure. I mean, that's, you've got to entertain the masses, and hopefully it's in like Stever, when it's in the mind of, you know, let's conserve these, and let's appreciate them, and let's, you know, respect them for what they are, and not just, you know, kill them because we're scared of them, that kind of thing. And I think that's what he did very well, is he made people aware of them and showed them that you could interact with them without getting killed and without, you know, whatever. Although he eventually got killed by something along that line, which is, you know, kind of the downside of that. But, you know, he gave his life for his passion and that excitement. Now I think at least some of us need to be putting out that highly educational content. So once they get their foot in the door, they have somewhere to go, you know? So, and that's kind of, you know, the reason that I like to write books, you know, that I appreciate YouTube videos and, you know, a website or something like that, but they kind of come and go, and you know, it's kind of fleeting, and sometimes it's hard to find some of that content. So, but a book, you know, that's a physical thing. You can buy it off of Amazon, you know, and you have it on your shelf, and you know where it is for the most part, you know, unless you loan it to somebody and they keep it. But, so as long as, you know, people like us, when we were kids and we were you know, wanting to read herpetology textbooks or whatever, you know, we had somewhere to go for that information. And I think that's kind of the danger of where, you know, the entertainment side makes a lot more money. It's a lot more fun. It's a lot easier. You know, you don't have to put much work or effort into it. You just pull out a snake and say, hey, look at this, you know, look at what I got. But, you know, in some respects, you're kind of like that weird dude walking down the street with a snake around your neck, you know, and no shirt on or something, like getting for shock.
It's always a berm. Why is it always a Burmese python? Why is it always a Burmese python?
Yeah. And I mean, I was that kid. I grew out of it, but I was that kid that had a berm around my neck walking in the, you know, our little town's parade on the 4th of July or whatever. So, you know, but I do think there is that responsibility to have, you know, some educational content. Even if you're, you know, mostly entertainment, you're still throwing in tidbits of education, right? You got to have some aspect of that, or what's the point, you know, if we're just wowing them with exciting, flashy snakes. But, so, you know, I always try to have, like you said, you've got to know your audience, and, you know, when my kids were in elementary school, I would come and do snake shows, but just for their classes, right? So I would only come if my kid was in their class. And I've had teachers approach me. I'm like, sorry, I just don't have time unless it's gonna, you know, my kids are gonna be there and help me out, and I get to see them, and they get to kind of share this passion with me, kind of thing. But yeah, we just have a few factoids or whatever about, you know, snakes or in general. And, you know, I love pulling out a pygmy python. Hey, you know, is it possible that I'm holding in my one hand a python? You know, this is a full grown, you know, this is as big as they get, python. So not all pythons are huge, you know, that want to eat your dog or something. So, you know, have something that they could learn and take away from that. So there should be something educational in there, and hopefully many sources of that kind of uber nerdy place, because that's where I like to go.
One of the things I'll touch on real quickly is do you use Wayback Machine?
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, that's the it doesn't get everything, but it gets a lot of good stuff. If you're listening to this, Wayback Machine just saves. It's an internet archive, and it just saves websites throughout time, and you can see a lot of really cool stuff on there. You can go back and look at old, I go on there and look at the old nerd website back in the day where I remember going on there and seeing a bumblebee ball python for $25,000 and, you know, all this crazy croc monitors for $200 and all this, you know, crazy stuff. But
one thing it doesn't do great sometimes is pictures, but I tell you what, Rob, I know you'll know this animal, the tri-stripe blood python on the Financial Times, the pink newspaper. So that was how I wound up starting to talk to Kara, was I had seen that, you know, when it was live or whatever, and I think she had just gotten up there, and Kevin was like, I absolutely don't want to talk to some blood python nerd. Here you go.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it had already been sold, but that one that you can still see on there was the genesis for that, for sure.
Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah,
man.
It's fun to go see some of that old content. I think you can even get some of the old like forum posts and, you know, discussion.
If it was like visible through without having to log in, a lot of those are still saved. So I think like ballpythons.net, you can still see some of their old forums because you didn't have to log in to see their forums. A lot of nerd stuff I think was behind a login, so I don't remember whether or not you can see some of that stuff. But
cool tool for sure. Yeah, and I mean, I still remember some of those website, like Python Pete's website. Like I was on there all the time. You know, he kind of was the inspiration for my own podcast or my own website having like the what's new page and stuff, because I'd always want to see what was happening and what was new and stuff. So I
love the pattern wallpaper from the animals that he had on there.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember. This is like just a little aside because now we're getting off topic. But back before I kept snakes, I was like just enamored with blood pythons, and like VPI was like the ones who had blood python stuff. And so we didn't have any internet at my house, but my mom worked at a hospital, and so she had access to the internet. So I was like, "Can you go to VPI?" You know, I go to their website, and she printed out their pages about blood python, and I taped them up on my wall, and it had like the strip of patterning down the side of the web page, and I was just like, read that back and forth 150 times, and I was in love with that.
I think VPI is a great example of, you know, kind of bringing that educational aspect, you know, to the forefront and being, you know, really kind of, I mean, scientists and learning more and studying snakes and things and kind of bringing that higher level of education. And I think, you know, people and everybody kind of looked up to them, you know, like, oh, they're kind of up here on that upper echelon. I want to be like the Barkers someday, that kind of thing. And, you know, we need those instead of just a guy who churns out a bunch of baby ball pythons. You know, we need some kind of heroes that have that educational standard, or that know stuff and that are excited and passionate about it. And that's kind of a rare mix, I think, in herpetoculture, because that's usually reserved for, you know, a university or a scientist or something. So, and they don't have a ton of interaction generally with, you know, the herpetocultural population, which is kind of who we're talking to, or who probably listen to this more so. But I don't know. I'm trying to think if we still have those, you know, hopefully we can kind of be that for the next generation, or, you know, get them excited about learning about these things and seeing them in the natural environment. And that's kind of like, I guess my goal in posting videos or content is try to say, okay, you know, these are the things you can find out there. These are the things that are waiting out there for you to discover and see cool behavior and things like that. So I don't know. I think, obviously I really enjoy education. I think education is very important, and the things that we don't know probably far outweigh the things we do know about reptiles in general, you know, especially when thinking about reptiles in the wild and what they do day to day. You know, we have a very limited understanding and knowledge. And I think if everybody put kind of that effort towards discovery or have that kind of research minded attitude about chasing snakes in the wild, maybe it'd be less of like a checklist and more of kind of like a observation, you know, getting out in your backyard and just kind of watching things and maybe making, citizen citizen scientist type observations that could potentially be published. I don't know. That's kind of my dream. That's my goal as a retiree, just to sit around and watch rattlesnakes or something.
I would love to do that. I feel like I'm not smart enough to publish a paper. So I'm always just like, when I think about like people who publish papers, I'm like, they know things. I'm just out here looking at lizards, man. Come on. Like,
well, that's where you're wrong. I think, if you can make an observation or see something unique or find a pattern or things like that. I mean, granted, there is kind of a structure and a I guess, a way of doing things in the scientific literature, but, team up with a scientist, team up with a herpetologist and write the paper together. There's lots of interest in those kind of things, especially if you're out there gathering data and spending your time and money without them having to put in a dime. They're going to be very happy to publish something, if you make some discovery. So.
Maybe. Well, I'm gonna take it back to the argument just for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
How many people are reading those papers, and how many people are seeing the YouTube videos? I'm just saying. I'm just.
No. I mean, it's a fair point for sure, and I think that's I guess that's what I'm kind of making a plea for, is that we're shifting too much towards the entertainment and shifting away from education. So yeah, we'll be wowed for a bit, but then what's next? Like, they're going to want more and more, shocking or more, it's going to stimulate that release of endorphins or whatever. It's going to take more and more to get them excited about things. And pretty soon they're just going to be like, I've seen it all. I don't have any interest in this. They kind of.
Have you seen Coyote Peterson get bit by an alligator snapping turtle? Come on.
Yeah. But how many bites until you're like, okay, I'm sick of watching this guy get bit by stuff.
Everyone loves watching someone get hurt, which is terrible. And I actually am not one of those people. Whenever I see a video of somebody that's getting bit or stung or hit by something, I can't watch it. Like those videos of people getting bit by crocs, I cannot physically watch them. They disturb me to the core. Yeah. But if you look at how many people Coyote Peterson has following him, people like watching him get hurt.
It's true. Yeah.
I mean, they like his educational content, of course.
Yeah. He is putting out a lot of information as well. So I get that. I don't know. I don't watch him, but
I've never watched him. I've seen the thumbnails and I've heard all the clips of him getting nailed by a tarantula hawk. So
I did watch him chase around a parenti on one of his videos. So he did put out a few factoids about parentis, so I appreciate that. But
hey, you watched the video.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Hey, any video with a parenti, I'm on board. But yeah. Well, I don't know. Any final thoughts? It's getting late where you're at. We're West Coasters, so it's not as bad for us. But
I stay up until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning most days, so it's not that late. I would like to go on record before we close this episode to say that I'm not actually on this side. I'm much more on the education side, but I like playing devil's advocate because I feel like until you can play both sides of the coin on a topic, you don't know it super, super well. And so I'd like to say that I'm much more on the education. I think if you watch anything that I post online, you'll see that it's much more along the education side of things. But I do understand that the entertainment has its place, even though I don't particularly like most of the people who entertain when it comes to reptiles. They kind of get on my nerves. But
and I do enjoy your memes that you put out too.
Oh yeah,
entertaining stuff. Pretty funny stuff. Yeah.
I just I think about if you can, I think it goes back to just reaching people. If you can reach people, you can teach them things. Yeah. But you have to be able to reach them first, because I know so many people who are so incredibly smart. They've got all this incredible knowledge. I think that they're the most fascinating people. But to the average person, they go, I don't even understand what he's talking about right now. It just doesn't reach him. And for me, that's tragic because I'm there is so much cool information out there. Bob Rock over here, when we were hanging out at Carpet Fest, I was like, oh my God, this is just makes my brain tingle with all the incredible like stuff and talking with you, and then Zach Baez, and just talking about all of these like, you know, such interesting things. And then I think about like the you know, the average person who's watching a YouTube video, and I just know that they would be bored to death with the conversation that we're having right now. But for me, I'm like, oh man, this is just like, I wish I could just sit here and talk all night, because I just soak that stuff up, because I think that you can learn from just about anyone. You know, I've learned things from 10-year-olds who have come on tours, and, you know, the moment that you think that you know more than everybody, that's the moment you should give up, because I have learned things from all kinds of people. And the more different types of people you meet, the more things that you're going to learn, and the more ways that you can apply those things to the things that you're currently doing. You know, look at the fish hobby and the way that they've got these timers on their lights that ramp up to create mimic the sunrise, peak during the day, and then ramp down at nighttime. What do our timers do? They turn on at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they turn off at 8 o'clock at night, man. Like hard on, hard off. That's it. Cool. It did the thing, right? Yeah. But if we are, you know, in our own bubble, we don't ever get to learn those things. We don't ever get a chance to grow. And I think that that's part of all of this is growth. And, you know, go to Steve Irwin, go to Brian Barczyk. As you watch them, they grew and changed and developed as they went on in their career. You know, Steve Irwin was catching things in his Jeep and putting it in a little, you know, bucket, basically. You know, he's got like this little tiny box that you're like, oh, the crocodile's going to break that thing immediately. I don't know what he was thinking doing that. And, you know, now he's, you know, his legacy has built this incredible zoo where people can go because they saw the dude jump on a snake out in the desert face first and land on a parenti, you know? They saw him do that, but then they come to the zoo and they learn about Australian wildlife. They get to see a koala up person. They learn about that thing. They, you know, I haven't been to Australia yet. I know that Australia Zoo is high on my list when I go there, and I need to see a death adder and a lace monitor. But, you know, all of this to say that we start with education. We start with entertainment, right? When you're a kid, you know, besides us freaks, you know, the average kid is going to look at, oh, bright colored snake. Oh, it grabbed the bird. Oh, you know, just something to grab the attention. Yeah. And then after that, that's when everything else conspires. That's when everything else happens. And so we do need to have that entertainment. We do need to have something that draws people in. I think that the fish hobby right now is, I'm not going to say it's suffering, but it is struggling because they are having a tough time getting newer people to join and to really get into it. You know, less people are going out and getting a fish tank for their kids because it's a lot of work. You know, back in the day, they didn't really tell you how much work it was. They just said, you get a fish tank, you got some kids, get a fish tank. They'll have them for, you know, a couple months and then you get rid of your fish tank. Yeah. And, you know, the fish hobby is struggling right now because it's not as many people that are getting drawn in because they are lacking in that entertainment portion of things. And, you know, they had like Deadliest Catch and, you know, there are things out there. You know, there's Shark Week on Discovery and all that sort of stuff. But that doesn't always trigger the same interest as people seeing, you know, a cobra or a rattlesnake or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so the entertainment portion of things reaches so far, so deep down into the pool of people that would never have an opinion one way or the other otherwise. Yeah. And after that is where all the other things happen. And, you know, some people don't ever develop past, I need to see a guy hold a king cobra and do something irresponsible with it. Some people don't ever get past that, but there are lots of people who do. Yeah. And without that, they wouldn't even be interested in the very basics of anything that we have to offer, anything that we have to share. And if people don't care, you know, people don't get invested. That's Steve Irwin. One of the things that he said is like, you know, gone are the days of looking at wildlife behind the zoom lens. No. I'm going to take you and I'm going to bring you right there with me. If I'm saving I think it's whales in the ocean. I want you there with me. If I'm catching snakes, I want you there with me. Because if you can make people care about wildlife, then they want to save it, because people want to save the things that they care about. And that is the whole portion. That was his thing. That is what he was. And, I think that he was pretty good at doing that.
Yeah. And I think he was definitely onto something, because, I've watched lots of videos about, whale sharks, but swimming with a whale shark last month, I mean, totally different, than watching it. It was so great to experience that. Even bump into one on accident. The wave pushed me into one. Like the guy's like, dude, you're not supposed to.
Oh wait.
That's the wave. It wasn't,
He's like, for legal purposes, I didn't touch it. I was near it.
Or to find that Gila monster crawling around and just sit and watch it and, just get excited about it. That's what it's all about, I think, just getting that experience, and that can only, those experiences are irreplaceable. You can see as many videos as you want on YouTube, but once you experience that for yourself, it's next level, I think. So
hearing a rattlesnake, man, just a little buzz. Oh man. Woo!
Yeah. Poor Keith. We were looking at a clobber eye, a banded rock rattlesnake, and we could hear it rattling, and
the high frequency.
Yeah, I'm like, oh man, yeah. Maybe you should walk behind us. I don't want you stepping on a clob. But yeah, that's that's an intense sound to hear that rattlesnake from a big old Western Diamondback or something. Is to feel it. You feel it almost. So yep, that's good stuff.
Hell yeah.
So much cool information. And, that Dunning-Kruger effect is a real deal, and it's kind of spreading, and it's kind of scary. So let's combat that. Let's actually learn stuff, and, realize that you don't know a lot, and there's a lot to learn. And that's the joy of life, is learning new things and finding new things out. And, the great thing about having a bad memory like me is you can learn the same stuff over again. But
that's great.
I think this was a great discussion. I really appreciate your insights. That was some fun devil's advocating you did there.
Listen, man, I'm all about that. Like I said, if I feel like I am well versed on a topic, I want to be able to even sit on the side that I don't agree with and be able to make some points. And I feel like that's kind of where I was at tonight.
Oh yeah. That's the whole idea of the show, and you're a heavyweight, man. That was great. Yeah. That's what
I like it. I like it when there's some back and forth, some opposing opinions on me.
Exactly. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, where can people find you? Talk about your podcast and all the stuff you're doing.
Yeah. Check out the Reptile Talk podcast. That's with my buddy Jeremy from Brassman Reptiles. I've known him for over a decade now. We do a podcast where we just talk to people about reptiles and talk about the things that they find interesting. We try and get people on who I think can share a new perspective or something that people can learn from. And so it's kind of less structured. We just kind of like let the conversation go where it's going to go. Yeah. But Reptile Talk, check it out. We're on all the streaming things. If you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to this, you can find Reptile Talk on there too.
Yeah. You guys are really fun to listen to. I really enjoy your podcast for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate
you have a really kind of a nice, easy banter, and you're fun to, you're always positive and energetic, and it's really a fun time to listen to. So yeah, highly recommend.
I appreciate that. I feel like coming from the education portion of things, when I get to like talk reptiles with people, I just get so into it. And I'm sure, Rob Stone knows when I was out there, I was like, oh man, I get so excited talking about things, and hard to keep it all under wraps. So, on the podcast, I just gotta keep it cool and casual.
Well, that was, I always thought, the phone conversations that you have with your reptile buddies are always, I just thought that would be a fun podcast, just to record your telephone conversations. You'd probably have to edit out a lot of it, to spare feelings or something, but, it'd be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, check that out, Reptile Talk. If you want to see what I'm doing and look at all my reptile memes, check it out. Rob is Creeping It Real on Instagram. Please don't add me on Facebook. I prefer to just have, I prefer to just have like people who I know in real life on Facebook. I do have a lot of friends on Facebook, but I do know, probably a third to half, like probably about half of the 4,000 people that are on there or whatever it is. So I've met all of them in person, and I try and keep things positive and introspective, and I like to make people think, because there is a serious gap in our social media literacy programs of being on social media platforms. There's definitely a gap of pushing people to think critically about things, and I hope that with the things that I share, people can think critically about them. And if people have a differing opinion, I'm always willing to hear that out and to take into consideration that I don't know everything.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I just like from the first time I met you, I became a fan. You're just that kind of guy. And I think you should limit it. Your friends list to anybody who's eaten one of your bacon cupcakes. There you go. Great stuff.
I should.
Yeah, you're quite the cook there.
Clear out some people real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, but awesome. Yeah, man. Well, I
appreciate you guys having me on so much.
Yeah, no,
it's been an honor.
A lot of fun. Yeah, we'll have to have you back for sure. If you ever have any ideas, you want to get a fight out of your system, just let us know. Happy to have you back anytime, man.
We're gonna do the free handling episode. Is free handling good for the hobby?
Yeah.
Sorry, you can have the pro free handling side. I'll do the con. On that one.
Yeah. Well, I guess I could be classified as Nipper called me a dirty free handler in Arizona.
You tailed something?
Yeah, I tailed. It was a little coral snake. It was tiny, so I don't think I could have got it any other way. And its tail was just sticking out from like this fallen yucca or something. Like it was underneath this plant, most of it. And I just saw the tail. I'm like, that's a coral snake. I don't want to let this thing get away. So I grab it and I'm like, okay, I got it. Now what? Give me something to put it in quick. So we could go photograph it and stuff. And we put it back right where it was, right where we found it. But yeah, that was. And I don't even know if it could have bitten me, but yeah.
Ruining the hobby. Look at this guy over here. He's free handling things, posting it online for the likes. I knew it. Justin Julander just doing things for the views.
You got me. the knockout punch right there. Well, and I guess, along these veins, we kind of like to end the show with anything educational or anything interesting you've seen in the last, few weeks or months or whatever. Unfortunately, there was a bit of bad news lately. There was a guy in Colorado who's gotten bit by a Gila monster and actually died.
Died a couple days later, yeah. And it wasn't even a full-grown one.
Really? A juvenile. I didn't see that in there. That's crazy. Yeah. It's a totally rare thing. I mean, he had to have had some kind of allergy or
something. Supposed to be the first person since 1930 to have
1930. Yep. So almost 100 years since the last person was, and that documentation for that person wasn't from a hospital or a medical journal. It was like from some article written someplace. So it's
right. So quite possibly even longer than that.
Even longer. Yeah.
You would wonder about underlying health conditions and, allergic reaction, just the whole context of it. I don't doubt that there's more to the story that we'll never know. But yeah, unfortunate, certainly.
Yeah.
So,
and hopefully there won't be any negative repercussions for reptile keepers in Colorado. They won't start trying to outlaw, Gila monsters because there's a documented, death on the books or something. So I don't know.
As opposed to decades of them being kept safely, you talk about Doc Seward, these, some real innovators in terms of captive Gila monster propagation and all. But
one of those pioneers in Gila keeping and just basic biology of the things. Yeah.
But a shame, for sure.
Unfortunate, for sure.
Yeah. The dude was like 34 years old too. He wasn't even that old. So
yeah, pretty young.
Just goes to show you, people got to be more careful with their heloderma. Like, I see a lot of people laying with them on their chest and like putting them up to their face and stuff. I'm like, oh man, do you have no concept of like self-preservation at all?
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's, I guess, maybe going back to our discussion where, kind of that entertainment is leading, is like, we want to have some shocking thing that we're doing with a reptile rather than just saying, this is a Gila monster. Look how, what cooler lizard can you see, than a Gila, maybe a Parenti, but that's just me. Gila monsters are such cool lizards, and, they're kind of, plotty, dopey demeanor kind of belies that they are a venomous animal, and you don't know that you have an allergy until you're bitten and in the intensive care unit, so why take the risk? Why,
My thing is that,
you gotta tail a snake sometimes that's venomous, or you gotta move them, or if you're keeping them, you've got to interact with them on some level. And if you don't know how to properly handle them, you shouldn't be keeping them, first off, but you also shouldn't be taking stupid risks like, holding a wild cobra mid body, that's just asking for trouble. I just don't get it. You're going to lose a finger or worse,
for real.
Anyway,
my thing is that like I was telling you, the average person has no frame of reference. So when they see someone with a Gila monster on their chest, they're not going, "Oh, look at that venomous lizard." They're going, "Oh, that dude's got a lizard on his chest." They have no, and that's one of the things that I argue with people who free handle things. They're like, "I'm showing people that like venomous snakes are not out to like kill people," and I'm like, I guarantee you, if you pick up a rat snake and the rat snake does the same thing that the cobra does, people are just as entertained. And you are at no risk of dying from the rat snake. I guarantee it, because all people see is you holding the snake that's got its mouth open, and almost everything else is irrelevant to them, for the average person when it comes to entertainment. And it's just risk reward, man. You got to weigh it.
And people who know better are like, who's
think
this
you're
idiot?
an idiot.
They're not entertained. They're just like freaking out because they're like, oh great, here comes legislation. The only reason people know they're deadly snakes is if you're telling them. But you could hold a rat snake and say, this is the most dangerous snake on earth, and I'm handling it because I'm cool.
You don't even have to say that. Just the fact that it's a snake and it's got its mouth open is enough for most people.
Yeah.
I'm
most
not gonna
people
lie.
probably think any snake bite is probably
deadly,
close to lethal, or
I would have so many people on our tours ask that. They're like, have you been bit by a snake? And I'm like, lots of them. And they're like, you're not dead. And I'm like, yeah, I never been bit by a venomous snake. I've been bit by, lots and lots of harmless snakes. Yeah. Not regularly, but it has happened,
Yeah. I got bit by an inland this week, if you can believe it.
Ooh.
I think I was a little bold. He was probably thinking it was feeding time, and I was reaching in to grab him, and he just gave me a little nip. But that's a rare event.
Think of the last thing I got bit by.
Hard to get bit by an inland.
I love those. They're so pretty.
Yeah, they're so cool. All right. Well, thanks again for coming on, Rob. It's been a pleasure having you here, and really enjoyed hearing your perspective on these things, and lots of great points. So again, we'll have you back anytime. So just say the word.
Yeah. It is Fight Club time. Thank you guys for having me on. We got to ring the bell. Ding, 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 ding. It's over. You guys got to leave a comment and let us know who won the fight.
There you go. Or don't, because I'm pretty sure.
Or don't.
No. Yeah. Thanks again, man. We'll catch you all again next week for another episode of Reptile Fight Club.
Fight Club.